gorgeous Sephardic spinach and cheese Phyllo spirals, Bulemas de Espinaca y Queso, the way my grandmothers made them, with just a few of my own modern twists.
Sally, that girl, in the kitchen.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sally, that girl, in the kitchen. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to make a Sephardic spinach and cheese Phyllo spiral. Yes, what I call a spinach and cheese bulema. Una bulema de espinaca y queso. It's absolutely delicious. And in my family, it's called bulema because I am Sephardic Turkish. So the Sephardic Turkish call these yummy spirals that are made with phyllo dough, they call that a bulema. And a borreca, we call one that is made with a homemade dough, and it looks a little bit more like what you would know as an empanada, but to us, that is a borreca. And I know it's confusing because to some people, what I'm making today is a spinach borreca. So call it whatever you want to call it. Spell it however you want to spell it, because I found that I spell it the way my Cuban, Jewish, Sephardic parents and community spells borreca, and other people spell it very differently than I do, but it doesn't matter how you spell it or what you call it. To me, this bulema is absolutely delicious. It's one of my favorites. It's filled with spinach and a delicious combination of cheeses, and I know you're gonna love it. And as a side note, I've also made a bulema with homemade dough. There's already a video out using a spinach and cheese filling, and that dough is homemade, but this is store-bought phyllo dough that we're gonna be using today, so it makes the job a little bit quicker and a little bit easier. And I've also put out a version where I use the phyllo dough and I use a classic potato and cheese filling. That one's also delicious, so make sure to check those all out. So I am super excited to teach you how to make it. So let's not wait another second and let's get started.
For today's recipe, you will need 3 pounds, in other words, 48 ounces of frozen spinach, thawed with all the water squeezed out of it. 1 16-ounce box of phyllo sheets, thawed. 4.5 cups or 18 ounces of shredded Parmesan cheese. 1.25 pounds or 20 ounces of Feta cheese, which I prefer buying in block form. A 16.9 ounce bottle of avocado oil, which you will use as needed for brushing the phyllo. 1 large egg, which you will be beating and adding a touch of water to, and some grated Parmesan cheese as needed for sprinkling over these beautiful bulemas. You will also need 2 large trays with sides, 2 clean kitchen towels, some parchment paper, some plastic wrap. I'm going to be using a tool to help me squeeze out my spinach, but of course, you can always use your hands instead. You'll need a large bowl, a small bowl and a pastry brush, a spoon and a fork, another small bowl with another pastry brush, and some oven mitts. And finally, you will also need a couple of cooling racks and a spatula. So now that we have all of our ingredients and tools together, let's get started. So what I like to do is the night before I'm going to prepare my delicious spinach and cheese bulemas, I like to pull my spinach out of the freezer and put it into the sink to thaw. So I have 4 bags, but I'm really only going to be using 3 bags and 3 ounces from that 4th bag, but I'll definitely find another use for the remaining spinach. And then of course, I also need to pull out the phyllo dough, which is frozen, but that I'm going to place in my refrigerator to thaw overnight. So they'll both thaw overnight, but the spinach I leave in my sink and the phyllo dough I leave in the fridge. So now it's the next day, my spinach is thawed, and I'm going to just bunch by bunch add it to my tool to squeeze out the liquid. And as I said, if you don't have a tool, that's okay. You can just use your hands, but I find that this really helps me get out a lot of that liquid, and that way it's a lot less work using my hands, but regardless, I always, after I squeeze, I still grab them in my hands and give them another good squeeze because I want to make sure that I get all of that liquid out. I want it nice and dry. And then once I squeeze out the liquid from each bunch, then I'm going to add that bunch into a large bowl. See, this is what it should look like, nice and dry. So I'm just adding it into the large bowl, and then bunch by bunch, I'm going to squeeze it all. So once I've squeezed all the water out from my spinach, I'm going to use my hands and I'm going to loosen up the leaves. I don't want clumps. I want my leaves nice and loose. And then right on top of that, I'm going to add 4.5 cups of pre-shredded parm. And then I'm going to use a spoon and just give that all a bit of a mix. So I'm trying to just incorporate it a little because I still have to add my feta. So now I'm using block feta and I'm going to crumble it up. I have 1.25 pounds of feta, 20 ounces. I'm going to crumble it by hand because I find I get a better quality cheese when I buy it in block form, and I can control the size of those crumbles. I just want them nice and uniform, no really big pieces, just a nice crumble of cheese. And then once I have that in, I'm going to come back in with my spoon. I'm going to start to mix that in. But as I always say, there's no tool like your hands. So I'm just going to clean off that spoon, and with clean hands, I'm going to go right into the bowl and make sure to incorporate those cheeses well. What I'm looking is to distribute the feta and the Parmesan cheese so that we have both of the cheeses all the way mixed throughout the spinach. That way, every bite is going to have both that feta cheese and that Parmesan cheese. It's a perfect combination. And using a glass bowl helps visualize that. So now is a good time to prepare 2 large baking sheets and line them with parchment. I also suggest your baking sheets have sides because we are using oil, and that way you don't run the risk of the oil spilling over in the oven while your bulemas are baking. So now I've added some avocado oil into a small bowl. And as I said earlier, I'm adding a few modern twists. So what do I mean by that? Well, my grandmothers taught me how to make this using vegetable oil or even corn oil, because back then that's what they used to use. But now we know better, and so we can use avocado oil and it tastes perfect because it's super neutral. It's perfect. So now I'm also going to pull out some plastic wrap, and remember those 2 clean kitchen towels? I got to wet them and squeeze them well. So I ran them under the faucet, squeezed out all the water so they're just moist. Then I'm going to grab my now thawed phyllo dough, which I pulled out of the fridge, and I'm going to start with just 1 roll because there's 2 rolls in this particular pack. So this one's going back in the fridge. I'm going to work on roll number 1. Now is also a good time to preheat the oven to 350 degrees, making sure you have a rack placed in the center. Then you're going to open up your roll of phyllo, and you'll notice it comes rolled in a wax paper or some type of a plastic paper. So you're just going to gently open that roll and just lay the sheets out right on top of that same paper. Then you're going to come in with plastic wrap, super important, and then the moist towel. You don't want to put the towel right on the phyllo dough, but this keeps it nice and moist, keeps it from drying out while we are working. And every time you're going to work, you're going to pull out 2 sheets, put the plastic and the towel right back on to keep those sheets moist. So now I'm just dipping the tip of my pastry brush into that oil, and I'm just going to add a little bit on the first sheet, and I'm going to add a little bit on the second sheet. I like to use 2 sheets for each bulema. Some people use 1 sheet and they fold it in half. Some people just use 1 sheet spread open. This is the way that I like to make it so that they're extra crispy and golden and gorgeous. So notice I'm just using a regular kitchen spoon. I'm making a nice row of my spinach filling, but there's 2 ways to fold these. So the first way is to bring in the sides. You're going to fold those in, and then you're going to start rolling this into a log. And every so often, you're just going to put a little touch of oil on that phyllo. It helps keep it from cracking. It just makes it easier to roll just a little bit, either with your fingertips or the pastry brush. And then you're just going to roll it into a log. So now this was way number 1, where I folded in the phyllo on the ends, and then very gently you're just going to come around, coil it, and then I just kind of give it a little squeeze in my hand, and that's it. I'm going to put it right on the parchment paper. Easy peasy. Now, I'm going to show you the second way. So I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to just gently dab some oil onto my first sheet of phyllo, then again onto the second sheet. Notice it's torn, but it doesn't matter. We're going to roll it up. You're not even going to notice if there's a little tear here and there, so don't stress. Just a little bit of oil on each sheet. Once again, a nice row of that spinach and cheese mixture. But notice both now and before, I left some space at the bottom of the sheet and on the sides. I don't start right at the very edge, and I don't go to the end. So this time we're not folding in the ends, and we're just going to fold into a roll without folding over those ends. And you can do either. They look practically identical. I kind of think I prefer this one. I'll show you in a minute why. Because what I do with this one is I just tuck those ends, and it kind of just gives it a nice finish to that beautiful spiral. See, I just kind of tucked it in, folded it over gently, and if it cracks as you go, it's okay. But just the trick is to be really gentle as you twirl, and then I pinch that and I tuck it right under the bulema, and it just gives it a beautiful, almost like endless look. So either way works beautifully. So then all you want to do is repeat this process over and over. But as you are preparing your bulemas and adding them to your tray, you also want to make sure to cover them with plastic wrap. And you're going to use that second moist towel, and you're going to add more oil into your little bowl as needed to continue to brush it on to your sheets of phyllo. Remember, you want 2 sheets for every bulema if you're going to make them the way I do, which I highly recommend. And then you're going to leave a little space at the bottom and the sides, and you're going to roll it up first into a log, brush it as needed with a little bit more oil. It's going to help it roll, and it's going to help it spiral when you go ahead and try to bend it into that spiral shape. And then just pinch the edge, and then again very gently just move it very gently so as to try not to crack it, but it's okay if it cracks. Then tuck it under, give it all a little squeeze, and put it on your tray. So now we have 9 bulemas ready. I make my bulemas nice and full. I want spinach and cheese in every bite. Don't get skimpy. You want a lot of spinach and cheese in your bulema. And then you're going to grab a large egg. You're going to add a touch of water to that egg, and you're going to beat it. And what we're going to do is with this one single large egg, it'll be enough for all of the bulemas I make today. I'm using a clean pastry brush, and I'm coming in and I'm giving all of my bulemas a nice egg wash on the sides, on the top, all over. And you want to make sure to do that to all of your bulemas. And then once you've done that, then what we're going to do is we're going to save this for our second tray, of course, of bulemas. And you're going to come in with some grated Parmesan cheese, and you're just going to give them each a sprinkle of parm. Remember, we're developing flavor. Everything needs to taste delicious. The inside, the crust, all of it. Absolutely yummy. So now these are beautiful. They're spiraled and gorgeous and filled with spinach, feta, and parm. Super delicious. I think my grandmothers would be proud. They used to make these for me, and now I'm the one who makes them. And of course, I share my knowledge and the love with you guys. So hopefully you'll make them too. So now you're going to pop those into the oven on a center rack and set a 30-minute timer to allow them to bake. And then we're going to work on the other roll while the first batch is baking. So once again, you're going to lay it out right on top of the plastic. Cover it with plastic wrap, use one of the moist towels to cover it, and then you're going to do the same thing we did before until, of course, you run out of your filling. So just to reiterate, you're just going to use 2 sheets of the phyllo. You're going to brush them lightly with the oil, fill them well end to end, spiral them up, add them onto a tray. And here is the first batch. Look at how gorgeous these look, and they smell incredible. I wish you could smell them right now. The kitchen is filled with the aroma of my childhood. Yes, this brings me back. They're flaky, gorgeous, and golden. So now you just want to use a spatula and very carefully put them on a cooling rack. And honestly, are these not gorgeous? They're so beautiful. We eat with our eyes first. And look at that gorgeous golden spiral filled with spinach and cheese. So crazy delicious. So these are ready. I got 9 out of that first box. Then from the second box, I was able to get 8, and that can vary. So you're going to get anywhere between 17 and 20 because there's not always the same amount of phyllo sheets in the box, I find. And remember, we egg washed them, sprinkled them, put them back in the oven 30 minutes for this second batch, and we will soon have some more bulemas. So now I had a touch of the filling left over. If you wanted to, you could buy 2 boxes of phyllo dough, and you'd probably use half of that second box, and you'd likely get another half a dozen or so bulemas. But I'm just going to bake this off. I'm going to spray my pan with a little bit of nonstick spray. I'm using avocado oil spray since I used avocado oil to make my bulemas today. And then I'm just going to add this right in. You could also beat an egg and add it in, and it'll become kind of like my fritada de Espinaca, Queso y Parmesan, which is basically like a spinach and cheese casserole. Super delicious, but you can bake it just as is. So now my second tray of bulemas is ready, the star of the show, and I got 8 more bulemas from that second roll, and they're just as gorgeous and delicious as the first ones. And I'm telling you, the smell is so great. And I also have that spinach baking in the oven, that little tray, the little side of extra spinach. So the smell of cheese and spinach is just divine in the air. And these are going to fly. So you just want to remove them once again from the hot tray and place them onto your cooling rack to allow them to cool. And of course, don't forget that delicious little side of spinach and cheese that we baked. And look at how absolutely gorgeous these look. They're absolutely beautiful. That egg wash and that sprinkle of parm on top made them beautifully golden, and they're just crispy, crunchy, just absolutely delicious with that amazing spinach and cheese filling that's kind of popping out every so often. Just absolutely gorgeous and inviting and enticing and just drawing you in. They are beautiful to look at, and believe me, they are delicious to eat. These are going to be a huge hit. And by using the phyllo dough and just knowing how to handle the dough, it makes the job really easy, and it's just as beautiful and delicious as when we make the dough ourselves. So this is definitely worth giving a shot. And then all you want to do is plate them on a beautiful platter once they've cooled down enough, because of course you don't want them to sweat, because you want them to remain nice and crispy, and they're absolutely gorgeous. I do recommend that if you're going to reheat these, you use a toaster oven or an air fryer or the oven itself, because you don't want to put them in the microwave, because you don't want that beautiful crispy golden phyllo dough to get soggy. But you're likely not going to have to worry about reheating these because they're going to sell real quick. The smell is going to bring everyone in, and everyone is going to want to have 1 or 2 as soon as they come out of the oven. They're that good. This is a true crowd pleaser and a definite staple of the Sephardic Turkish kitchen. And I am so blessed that I learned how to make these because my grandmothers were amazing cooks, as is my mom. And I've just been very, very fortunate to pick up so many things from them. So I'm picking this one because it's just so absolutely beautiful. You see how it even gets golden on the bottom? It's just complete perfection. We dealt with that phyllo dough perfectly, so it's nice and crispy. And it's absolutely gorgeous and appetizing, of course. So I'm going to cut down the center of one because it looks so beautiful when you see that beautiful spiral with that spinach inside. Wow, is that not gorgeous? I'm telling you, this is not only delicious, it's a work of art. My grandmothers really knew what they were doing. Look at how gorgeous that flaky phyllo dough looks and that spinach and cheese on the inside. Wow, it's just so beautiful and crispy. I can't wait to take a bite. So yummy. Wow. That phyllo dough is so flaky, crispy, and crunchy all in one. And that delicious spinach filling is perfection. It's such a beautiful contrast. That yummy, flavorful, delicious filling and that flaky golden crust. It's going to keep everyone coming back for more. Rolling it like that creates these magnificent layers. It's just complete savory perfection using some modern conveniences like store-bought phyllo dough, frozen spinach, and some avocado oil for health, but still staying true to the delicious flavors of my grandmother's kitchen. Absolutely gorgeous and delicious. And don't forget that little bit of spinach and cheese that we baked off. Look how gorgeous and golden that became. Yeah, I'm going to get into that too. Absolutely yummy. As is, I didn't even add anything to it, and it's crazy good. Super, super yummy. It's a plus.
So didn't I tell you these were going to be fabulous? I wish you could smell them. I wish you could taste them. But the only way you're going to do that is to try to make them yourself. They are well worth it. They're not difficult to make. As long as you know how to handle the phyllo so that it doesn't dry out while you're working, it's really quite simple. You saw we brush it with oil and then we just fill it up, spiral it up, and put it on a tray and bake them. They're not difficult to make at all. And the filling doesn't need to be pre-cooked. You just have to thaw it, squeeze it out, and you're good to go. Modern conveniences. Yes, I know. My grandmothers used to have to chop up the spinach fresh, lay it out on towels, let the spinach release its water overnight. We don't have to do any of that. We can just pick up some store-bought frozen spinach, squeeze it out, and we are ready. And it's super convenient, but still just as tasty. So if you've enjoyed today's recipe, I ask you to give it a little like, share it with your friends, write me a sweet comment. I really appreciate when you do all of those things. It really helps my channel grow. And actually watching my video really helps my channel grow because it helps that algorithm realize that you're interested in what I'm putting out. So thank you so much for watching. And of course, if you're not already subscribed here on YouTube, stop what you're doing, go over, subscribe, touch that little notification bell so that you get notified when I put out new, delicious, different recipes like I put out today. And of course, go over and explore. I have hundreds of recipe videos, not just Sephardic Turkish food, international food. I always say, I like to film what I like to cook. I like to film what I like to feed people. I like to film what I like to share with not only my family and friends, but with the world. So please make sure to explore because there's a ton of stuff that I know you're going to like there. And of course, if you're not already following me on social media, please be sure to follow me as Sally That Girl in the Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. And you can find me as Sally That Girl FL on X, Snapchat, and on TikTok. And I'm also on Threads, and I also have an Amazon shop, Sally That Girl in the Kitchen. But don't worry because all of those different things you're going to find attached to the link tree or to the banner of my YouTube channel. So I have that link tree there. I also have it at the top of my Facebook and at the top of my Instagram, Sally That Girl in the Kitchen pages, and I believe also on the top of my TikTok. So you'll be able to find me wherever I am all over the internet by visiting just any of those Sally That Girl in the Kitchen pages. I always have that information pinned to the top so you can make sure to find whatever you're looking for. And keep in mind that I also sometimes feature some of the things that I use, the tools. You'll find those in my Amazon shop. So definitely go over, explore, check those out. So once again, I just want to take a moment to thank you so much for watching. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. And I'll see you next time.
Sally, that girl, in the kitchen.